Over the next decade, why do you think that U.S. stocks can deliver attractive results, and what should investors bear in mind when they're investing domestically?
Well, Jillian, I love that you asked the question over a decade, because the most common question we get asked is, how do stocks look for the next year? Are we overdue for a correction? Is the Fed going to move again in the first quarter? What about a recession? And it's amazing how much time and energy are spent on short-term forecasts, and a lot of wealth is destroyed by people reacting to these short-term forecasts. It reminds me of my mentor is Charlie Munger, and he tells a story because I said, all of these forecasts are made, and yet they have no predictive value. Nobody knows what the market's going to do next year. Nobody knows when the next recession starts. And what we know is over the decade, there'll be progress. But over the next year, we can't know. And so when I was asking Charlie, why do all these people give these forecasts? He said, well, I have a lake house up in Minnesota, and I was buying a fishing lure. And I said, my God, it's purple and green, and do fish really take this lure? And the old timer behind the desk said, well, mister, I don't sell to fish. Right? What matters is do people take them? And the same is true with these forecasts. People give a forecast because they're asked for one, not because they know. So you ask about a decade, and the best thing about that is I could say, of course there'll be a recession in the next decade. Of course there'll be years when the market goes down, as well as years when the market makes progress. There'll be times of rising rates, there may be times of falling rates. The decade is the right format of time to think about. Now, when you do that and you look at the sorts of businesses we own and you look at stocks in general, you'd say, well, we're starting at an earnings yield on the stock market that is about 7%, right? That's in a sense the inverse of the PE. And I think that's often a good starting point when people think about long-term returns to think about the earnings yield. So are stocks overvalued today? Absolutely not. Should companies that we own make progress over the decade ahead? Absolutely. Will there be spotty times in there? Will there be times that are good? Of course, that's the nature of investing over a decade. But when we look at a long history, we don't see any reason to think that why stocks that have built wealth over decades shouldn't do so in the decades ahead.